Video into us this morning of North Korea's Kim Jong-un as he stepped out of his armored train to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is a rocket launching site in Siberia, the location for a summit, which has come together quickly and is happening at a time when Kim's regime appears to be stepping up provocative missile tests. Putin at this time is defiant in persecuting Russia's war on Ukraine. Let's bring in Abby Kugathasan, who continues to update us on the new developments. What's been happening at the summit since we last spoke, Abby?
Heather, that 40-second handshake kick-started the talks between Putin and Kim this morning. Russia quite literally rolling out a red carpet for the North Korean leader as he got off his armored train. And the location sending a very clear message. They met at the Cosmodrome, Russia's most important domestic satellite launch center. Putin even led a tour, and Kim was seen asking a Russian official several questions about rockets. Now, analysts believe North Korea is not only seeking economic aid, but is also eyeing access to Russian advanced technology and expertise to further develop its military capabilities. Now, Pyongyang had 2 failed satellite launch attempts this year. And when Putin was asked if his country would help North Korea with its satellites, he said, "That's why we came here." I spoke with Oxford professor Edward Howell this morning. He explained both leaders were very keen to put on a show for a watching world.
Denuclearization is not on the table. Money is on the table, and arms and munitions, going both ways, are on the table. The images, the videos that we're seeing, the statements that have been made, they target international audiences, particularly the US, particularly the West, and the US allies in Northeast Asia, South Korea and Japan.
Said he supports Russia's invasion of Ukraine, calling it a sacred fight against hegemonic forces. Putin wants arms for that war, even unreliable North Korean ones, says Professor Howell. And it was back in July, Heather, when another tour took place when Kim showed off his country's weapons to Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu.
Abby, both Russian President Putin and North Korea's Kim, they're being isolated by the West, and their regimes are heavily targeted by sanctions. So officials from the West will be watching this very closely where you are in London, in Washington, other Western capitals. Have we heard any official reaction there so far?
There is concern about this meeting. We know that South Korea and Japan watching very closely, especially after North Korea fired 2 short-range ballistic missiles just a short time before this meeting in Russia's Far East. And China is watching too. Professor Howell says it's likely that Beijing communicated with Kim before the trip. He says China wants to see stability on the Korean peninsula and would prefer the status quo when it comes to North Korea's nuclear capabilities. Previously, the United States did warn that these 2 countries were looking to lock up an arms deal. If that happens, it would violate UN sanctions.
We must remember that Russia, only 6-7 years ago, was supporting multilateral UN sanctions resolutions on North Korea's nuclear program. This meeting perhaps highlights quite clearly that Russia is now no longer going to do this.
Putin has said Russia would comply with its international obligations. Analysts will point out, Heather, Putin's actions don't always align with his words.
Abby Kugathasan from London. Thank you, Abby, this morning.